Welcome to the Three Old Goalies podcast, a Delusion Group podcast. The Three Old Goalies, we need your help. The Three Old Goalies are looking for sponsors. Reach out to us on social media or email. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, or email admin@delusion.group. If you can't sponsor us, that's okay. Give us a like or a 5-star review on your favorite podcast service of choice. Music for the show is provided by the Floodgate Operators. You can find us on Apple Music or Spotify. Three Old Goalies is not for goalkeepers under the age of 17. Get your earmuffs on the ready. And now we send it over to Boa, Evie, and Bone,
Michelle,
the
thank
Three
you for
Old
joining
Goalies.
us, first of all. And
Hi, Michelle.
we're thrilled to have you speak to us this next year. But before we start all this, fellas, I just wanted to do a little reiteration of where Three Old Goalies actually came from. Not that we have an anniversary or anything going on right now, but as and I don't know if anybody told you this, Michelle, but this is predicated on, you know, when you go to the coaches convention and you're drinking beers at the bars and you're just telling stories. And that's how Greg and I thought we would start this off. And we added Boa, who's always a delightful addition to any party, and it's turned out pretty well. So, but before we get going, I just want to do, as I said, a reiteration. So 3 things that I feel, you know, I used to call it the legalese, but 3 things that I think we need to refresh before we start. 1, the name, Three Old Goalies. I know that goalies is not proper nomenclature for soccer. I know it should be goalkeepers, but Three Old Goalkeepers just didn't have the same ring to it that Three Old Goalies had. So people, don't send us any more mail about this, okay?
We
It's
know
gonna
the
be
difference
Three Old
between a
Goalies.
goalie and a goalkeeper.
It's going to be Three Old Goalies forever.
So when
Okay.
they do their show, they can say,
Yeah, exactly.
3 young Twitter freaking thread-bearing goalkeepers.
That's correct. Yeah,
All
that's right. And, you know, and it's like, you know, it's like I used to tell players, you know, in college, well, Evie, we need to do this. It's like, you know what? When you finish playing, you can coach. And until then, how about I do it? So, okay, opinions. They're ours. You can't have them. Okay. And they're just opinions. Okay. And I got to be honest with you, most of the time they're wrong. Some are correct, some are right. But most of the time, like everybody's opinions, they're not 100%. So don't get bent out of shape if we say something, I don't know, maybe about U.S. soccer in the Open Cup that you don't agree with. Okay? Language. We're old, hence the name Three Old Goalies, and we don't have a filter maybe like you know, younger people do. The occasional F-bomb will show up. But just like deer on Interstate 71, there's no such thing as just one. Okay? So once the F-bombs start falling, they tend to multiply. We apologize for that, but we do have a disclaimer. I'm going to say it right now. If you're under 17, go do something else. Okay? Tell your parents they should listen, but if you're under 17 and you're a goalkeeper, go do something else. Okay. No, I'm done now. Thank you. Talking about ranting. So we have a special guest tonight. And again, we are starting to obviously get into Women's World Cup. And we actually have somebody from one of the host countries joining us tonight. Originally, I guess you're living in Lexington, Kentucky right now, but you're from, where in New Zealand are you from, Michelle?
Yeah, thanks guys for having me on. I really appreciate it. Love the opening too. Originally born in Auckland, top of the North Island.
Yeah.
And lived most of my childhood in Taupo, in the middle of the North Island, Lake Taupo. Okay. Some people refer it to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And you came over. Well, Greg will get into all this because he does all the interviews, but. You came over to the United States. You played. Did you play at University of Kentucky as well as coach?
No. I took the long way around to actually do my schooling. So, and as you said, Greg will probably hit on this, but went from New Zealand to Australia to England, then to here.
Wow.
So never had the opportunity to play in college here. Didn't even know about it, to be fair.
Really?
So it's
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Wish we could say that.
Yeah. Well, we didn't play in college either. We put on uniforms and stuff, but wasn't really what you call playing. So, but well, we're thrilled to have you. And before we get into we turn you over to the Mike Wallace of soccer. You're at Lexington FC now, and you're basically running the whole program.
That's what they say. They say the beginning of Lexington Sporting Club is kind of my fault. So I've got that on my shoulders. If we better succeed, is what I'm going to say.
So you're in the middle. You're probably in the middle of your first inaugural season. You have both a men's and women's team playing in the USL. Is that correct?
Yeah, right now we've just actually finished our W League, so that's done and dusted. That was May through June for a first-year program for us. But the boys, actually, USL League One is right in the middle. Actually, it's probably about the midway point right now of their first season.
Well, again, we're thrilled to have you, and hopefully you will give us some insights as to what's coming up in the World Cup. For the Women's World Cup, which is obviously, as people know, is hosted jointly by New Zealand and Australia. And when I was a kid, I was lucky enough to visit both countries, and Australia was cool, but New Zealand was unbelievable. Just wow. And so, so without further ado, we've introduced Michelle Rayner. Let me introduce the other two old goalies, John Boa from Boulder, Colorado, and Greg Deutsch from Cincinnati, Ohio. Gentlemen, how are you today?
Ryan was there at the USA, Canada, Jamaica, Guatemala game.
Oh, wow.
Were they in
The whole week,
same stadium?
the whole week was an adrenaline rush. I was contacted by, and Ryan was right there.
I'll jump into it on this one.
Let me see if I can slow this down. John Wall, who's a friend of mine, is on the national team staff with Jamaica.
Okay.
So I got to attend the Jamaican training session on Friday, get to meet Andre Blake. Then Saturday, I had to deliver some Curex insoles to Jesus Era at the Milford Training Center where FCC trains. So the USA team was training there. So got to meet him, take a picture. We went to the game. Another contact besides John Wall was able to get me 2 other tickets. I gave them to Ryan and his son. And my seats were, I don't know if you guys watched the game, it was a sea of blue with Guatemala, except for the Jamaican contingent. Yo, man, I was in that. I was in that. It was incredible. The people around me, incredible people, a lot of cousins and nephews of the players. Just an incredible experience. Evie, you went to the Mexico game. The streets were lined. Lined with Guatemalans.
That's cool.
And if you look at the bigger picture, if Guatemala does not win that game, Guadalupe comes here. The stadium's probably half full, maybe.
Yeah.
So, Ryan, I'm going to let you jump in because you got some other stories with the people around you. And on you're so like on me, hungover. You couldn't believe I got your tickets. I know. So take it away here.
I still struggle every time that I step into that stadium in Cincinnati, with it being my hometown. I still struggle with the reality that that's happening in my hometown.
It's a beautiful stadium.
Every single time I step foot in that place, or I'm near it, or I'm prepared to go to a match, I have that moment right on the outside of the steps, and Greg can attest to this. I stopped in the middle of the steps to talk to some random people. Like a buddy of mine who's a coach at TFA with me that I coached with here in Lawrenceburg happened to be sitting there with just a couple random fans from Guatemala, and we were just talking. Like, I still cannot believe that it happens here. And there were moments during both matches where, like, I think my son was ready to make fun of me because I was almost in tears. And it's such a weird feeling for me to be there when international games are being played because I just don't believe that it's happening. And it's the coolest feeling. That there's nothing better than the anthems. Like, I posted them on social media. I just posted all 4 anthems.
Cool.
That was it. Like, most of the stuff I posted, like, was just the anthems being sang for all 4 countries, because you can hear audibly all 4 of them being sang with like this, like, vibrato, right? Just the absolute, like, passion for their country. And there weren't that many Jamaican fans there. Compared to the Guatemalans, we were outnumbered for sure. Like, but the Jamaican fans that were there were in full voice. And it was an absolute blast. And I can't say thank you enough for the opportunity to go. And to get invited to the training session as well. Just like a really cool experience, even though we had to park our cars and then sneak around a locked gate to get in. You know, it was one of the things that I'll cherish for the rest of my life, getting that opportunity. It was very, very cool. And then I got to sit next to a bunch of the family members of the U.S. men's national team, which you all know me. I mean, Michelle, you don't know me that well, but guys, you know that during matches I say things.
Did anybody's parents call?
I mean, they could have. They probably could have. But I mean, Jesus Ferreira's mom was sitting right in front of me, like literally in the seat in front of me. And the fans were chanting, "We want Vasquez" at one point, like audibly, the whole stadium, right? And all I said was, "Not if we don't change formations, we don't." Like, I was like, we've got to move Ferreira somewhere else. We can't take him out. He scored 6 goals. I know the group games weren't as, like, against great opponents, but he's got 2 hat tricks in a row. You can't take him off the pitch right now. And his mom just turned around and looked at me and smiled.
Cool.
Like, and I didn't say it because she was in front of me. I was literally just talking to my son. Like, we're not, like, as much as I want to see Brandon in this game, I don't want to see that happen. And, you know, I was just hopeful that they would pull it out. And then when they scored the second to tie it up, to send it into extra time, I told Greg this, I legitimately thought I was having a heart attack in that moment.
It was Canada, dude.
Like, I get that.
Come on,
but
man.
Like, I get it.
You're gonna have a heart attack. Save it for Germany or somebody like that.
But, like, somebody else told me, dude, it was a Gold Cup. Wait till it happens in the World Cup.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay.
You're going to be waiting a long time.
Well, and that's in my mind, though, like, there's a difference in watching a game on television than being there in person.
Oh yeah.
And it's a different feeling for me when I'm there in person, because I'm there to, like, cheer on my country. I don't care if it's Canada or Morocco or whoever. I want the U.S. to win that game. You guys know how passionate I am about our international teams. Like, I get mad as hell when we are not playing well. And, you know, when Canada took the lead, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Greg took a picture of me as the penalty kick was being awarded. I was super pissed. Like, I should probably post it so everybody can see it. But, like, I was mad.
Yeah.
Like, I was super, super mad. So, just the overall experience was just a lot of fun. So, but when we scored the second goal to tie it, I legitimately, like, was lightheaded because I was jumping up and down and screaming like crazy. And yeah, you can say it wasn't that big of a game. Like, every game in my brain as a fan is that big of a game. When I go to those games, that is what it is. But here's a picture of Greg. This is like, where's Waldo? Find Greg in the sea of the Jamaican fans, right? Now, the little hint is that he's wearing a Royce t-shirt. You can't really see the logo, but, you know, Evie, you know Royce likes those bright colored tees, right? Yeah. So Greg's sitting in the middle of the Jamaican fans wearing Guade blue.
Oh, yeah, he is. Look at that. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, Greg, come on, man. But, yeah, I mean, just just an amazing experience. It was a lot of fun. It was a crazy week leading up to the game. I mean, not even knowing like what the next couple of hours was going to be every day. It felt like, oh, this could happen or that could happen, or we could be here, whatever. But very, very cool experience. So
that is cool. And Greg, did you meet the reserve goalkeeper for Jamaica?
I didn't. I knew he was
Jamali?
Bushy's guy. Yeah,
He's Bushy's guy. Yeah.
But I talked to John Wall about him, and they've been very, very happy. When you
he's doing a great job for Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
He's having a great year.
And what I forgot to share is I got to have dinner one-on-one with John Wall. So
cool.
You can imagine it was a fascinating, experience just to hear how he got there, what their plans are, his, just how he's managing it. He's also the U20 men's World Cup coach, and there's 800,000 Jamaicans in England.
Wow. Okay.
So anyway.
All right. Well, okay. This is all fun and games, but Michelle's sitting there like, what the hell is going on?
Me rambling a lot.
All right, John Boa, how are you doing tonight before we get started?
Oh, I'm great. I've been painting, so I'm covered in paint. I just had one question. Were both those games played back to back in the same
double
stadium?
header? I mean, incredible.
How did they do that with the field maintenance?
They came on every half and watered and stepped on or picked up or replaced some of the divots. That's all they did.
Well, good to see you, fellas. Everything is great. Michelle, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, sir.
I'm a big Flight of the Conchords fan, so I'm sure we'll have a lot in common.
Okay. All right. Well, without further ado, and these strolls down memory lane from a week ago, let's turn it over to Greg so you can talk to our guest and get some insights on the upcoming Women's World Cup hosted by New Zealand and Australia. Go ahead, Greg.
First, Michelle, thank you again. We all appreciate you taking some time tonight to do it. I want you to share the comparison of the size of New Zealand to Australia, and then if someone is traveling from here, how long it takes to get there.
Good. That's a good starting couple of questions there, Greg. To comparison, that is, I don't know what the largest city in the US holds. New Zealand is about 3 million people. Some say 60 million sheep. That's here or there, right? So don't question it because we got a lot. In the context, the size of Australia is, people don't know this a lot, and I was actually just telling somebody this the other day. Australia is similar to the width of the US.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty extensive.
Yeah,
pretty extensive country. So you got tiny and you got big right there.
Got it.
Yeah.
And the flights, we've heard so many different stories. What's your feeling on how many days it takes to get there?
Don't do it. Here's the plan. I figured it out after traveling around the world so many times. I think I've figured out a good way to do it. So especially being on the East Coast, you got to hit the ground, get over to the West Coast, stay there, wait until the last flight out, whether it's San Diego, LA, wherever it is. Hit that last flight, 11:10, 11:50, whatever it is, fly through the night, and then you basically land the next day, 7, 8 a.m. in the morning, and you're ready to go. Now, the trick is, can you stay up the entire day, and then you'll be on track.
Yeah.
So that's basically that. So you actually lose a day going over there.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's all up coming from this side of the country. And sorry, my lights go on and off, so I've got to do this yoga move. Coming from the east coast, it's typically all up. It would be upwards of 20, 22, probably.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's about a day. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow.
Just to let everyone know where the World Cup is and some little background of the countries there. As you mentioned earlier, you were born in New Zealand. What I'm going to tell people is she played on the New Zealand national team in the World Cup in 1991, the first Women's World Cup in China.
Sweet.
So long ago.
Big
Sweet.
time.
So
How
so
about-
long ago.
I mean, very impressive.
That's big time.
Incredible. Yeah.
That's huge.
Was
that New Zealand's first qualification into the World Cup?
It was the very first World Cup. So
Wow.
yeah.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There were only by recollection, there were only 12 teams at that World
Yeah.
Cup.
And they
That's
played
right.
at the University
That's
of
right.
Georgia. Yeah.
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 Wow. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Share with us, with Australia being so close, what is that rivalry? What is that rivalry like? As far as is it intense, or because Australia's had an upper, hand? It's who cares? What's the thoughts there on the women's side?
On the women's side, I think you're right in the sense that Australia's probably have had a lot more history. They have obviously a lot more talent that they can choose from, unlike New Zealand. We explained the size difference there. Rivalry is when you play each other for sure. But when you're not playing each other, you're supporting one another, if that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's in any sport. That's
Right.
in any sport across both male and female with
Even
those
rugby?
two countries. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. But it's we actually I think have the upper hand over Aussie with rugby. Not sure about rugby league. I think it's twisted around. I think Australia's got the upper hand there. But yeah, because there's so many people that live in both countries throughout their lifetime. They'll go over and they'll live in Australia if they're from New Zealand for a certain amount of years, come back, vice versa. So you kind of have that compassion, I guess, and friendliness, I guess, when you're not playing against each other. So there's that sort of friendship there with close countries.
Yeah, a good segue here, and this is coming from EV. I'm glad he hit me up on this one. How do you see soccer in the U.S. as a secondary sport in the same vein as in New Zealand, where rugby is king?
Yeah, that's a good one. It's very similar. I think it's always going to be, right? So what do we have in the US? And I might get the sports wrong, but obviously I think baseball was number one, but sort of known across this country, as in the NFL and basketball. It's the same type deal, same as over there. You've got rugby, then you've probably got cricket. Soccer, female and male, is on the lower, sort of like that sort of second, third tier. I don't think you ever surpass that. But hopefully you get to a point where you're as acknowledged, I would probably say. They'll, hopefully coming out of this World Cup, because obviously we don't have a longevity and get through the group play and going on. Hopefully that's changing. But hopefully we get to a point where we're seen as, a viable team to be representing our country and things like that moving forward. But I'm not sure you ever get out of that. It's just got such a deep history, especially with rugby over there. Those guys are big.
Yeah, Evie, do you want to add anything?
Well,
to that?
I mean, as you guys know, my son plays rugby or played rugby, and of course, if you're a rugby guy, similar to us with soccer or football, you worship New Zealand because they're the best, and the crazy thing is, as Michelle just said, a country of 3 million continually produces, world champion, in every competition, rugby players. It is a fabric of the New Zealand life, like football is for Brazilians.
That's true.
It's just
American football.
it's just what you do, and I it's fascinating to me, that and I guess there's in our sport, there's small countries that produce, Holland. This is not a big country. A lot of smaller countries produce world-class players, but so I was interested to see what Michelle would say, because we're kind of, if you compare the two sports, well, I mean, over here, like you say, NFL and NBA and everything, and soccer's, and we've all heard this for 40 years. It's gonna get there. It's coming up. But it's just, it's kind of the same thing with rugby in New Zealand.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure you ever get over that hurdle, but you're right. I mean, to be able to continually produce those type of athletes, because that's a different type of athlete.
Oof.
I mean,
Yes.
not only do you have size, you got strength, you got power, you've got it all.
No doubt.
But it's just a cultural thing. It's probably, you can reflect it to be similar to like a blue collar type just environment. I mean, I'm not sure if you read the book Legacy, but that speaks to the All Blacks and their culture around their programs and how they continually instill that into players coming in, and that just continues to, enhance what they do and the product that they put on the field. So that takes time.
Yeah.
And women's soccer is we're getting there, but we're not there yet.
Yeah.
Have you guys read Legacy?
I know.
Dude, it is a great book.
That's what I hear.
It is a great book. And chapter 17 is entitled No Dickheads. Right? That's how you make. It's great because if you're a coach,
chapters, you remember that one.
No,
I was
seriously.
going to say,
If you're a coach and you're reading this, you're like, yeah, right.
Mhm.
You want to have a successful team? No dickheads.
Yeah.
And we've all coached, we've all been there, and in which any gender, a dickhead can bring your team down quickly, right? And I mean, this book is. I'm sorry, I'm going off on a tangent again, but this book is great because it shares with you, what we just were talking about. How does a country of 3 million produce world champions, decade in, decade out, always at the top of the game, and it describes how they use it. And you can use a lot of it in your coaching, in your business, and a lot of the things they bring up in your coaching, your business, your life. I mean, it's a phenomenal book.
yeah.
All right. Let's go back to the 91 for a few minutes here. What was your feeling like? This is the first one ever, and you get to participate. Now you're going to play Denmark, Norway, and China, and you know it. So what's the expectations? What are your thoughts going into these games?
Thank goodness we made it. With that competition. Yeah, there was, again, very limited number of teams that represented their confederations at the time. I think there was only 6 confederations. So just the pure fact that we're there speaks volumes. Obviously, competition, who we're going to play against, you're always up against. I mean, look at it now. Look at those programs now, China, Norway, and Denmark. Just amazing. But just the fact that we're there and we're representing, I think it's so early on in the piece because football, as we call it in New Zealand, but soccer, as you guys call it over here, hadn't been established that long. And again, we didn't have the support system that those players and those programs have now in terms of, support financially, programming, facilities, everything of that nature. So it was a privilege and an honor, obviously, to be there and represent your country in anything, but difficult at the same time. But it was good experience, good challenge for sure.
Yeah, people forget. You played Norway, who was a runner-ups.
Yeah, they lost 2-1, I think, to US, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. We've had some guests on, as you guys will remember, and they shared with us some of the logistic nightmares, the food experiences. What do you remember about, quote unquote, some of the off-field? What was the off-field environment like?
Yeah, I would imagine it's changed dramatically when now you travel, because you've got everything available to you in terms of support staff, nutritionists, performance, all those sort of things. We didn't really have that back in the day. So what we had was a limited I guess, a limited crew. So it was challenging. I mean, it's China. It's not an easy trip to get there. It's obviously very similar to what these teams and players are experiencing right now, having to head across to that side of the world, to where New Zealand and Australia is. So they're dealing with those travel delays and nightmares like that. Food, you had to be pretty smart about what we did. We actually did have a person with us that could assist us with meal preparation and things of that nature. So we sort of did a lot within our own camp, so to speak. So that kind of took care of that. But it was a challenging and an interesting experience, to say the least.
Yeah. From the World Cup, and again, at the top of the program, you mentioned you didn't play here in the U.S., but I find it interesting, of all the schools in the country that you have a chance to attend, you end up at Lincoln Memorial University. And if people don't know where that is, I'm going to let you explain where it is. I know where it is. I've been there. I was lucky enough to find my way back. So I'm going to turn this over to you about Lincoln Memorial, the journey there, where it is, and yet you ended up, and I think this is pretty interesting. You minored in coaching, so you knew you wanted to get into coaching. So, take us down that path of the Lincoln Memorial time.
Yeah, no, that was I still, people ask me all the time right now, they'll be like, how'd you end up in Lexington? But it's like, how did I end up where I ended up in the entire US? So I went from New Zealand, played in Australia over there, and then throughout my Australian career, I actually went over to Millwall and had a trial with Millwall at the time, and we actually played a team from the US and ended up, I think we won 6-1, something like that, and I scored 3 goals. So I'm inking in the changing room, wanting to come over. My dad's English, so I blame that on him. How I went around the world. So from there, I actually it was called British Soccer back in the day. I think it's Challenger Sports now. Peter Arch, I want to say, ran that program. My coach at Millwall, John Hicks, knew Peter Arch over here. In the middle of one of our seasons, he's like, hey, why don't you go over there? Because I actually, in England, and this will put a little bit of history and the background behind it, I started working in Millwall, what was called the Sports Scholarship Scheme. So that actually helped kids really from the inner cities who played in multiple different sports. We actually supported them financially so they could play the sport that they loved and then attend school and do things like that. So we sort of got into a lot of the coaching side of it when I was playing. So we got into the coaching with the youth at Millwall and helping out with the scholarship scheme. So sort of at that point, as you alluded to, Greg, got an understanding that this might be a path that I might be interested in. So going back to John Hicks, he knew Peter Arch with British Soccer. A few of us from England came over one summer, and I think their headquarters at that time was in Kansas City, and did the 11, 12-week go around the country camp. You guys probably remember back those, right? So from city to city to city, look back now and it's like, what was I thinking? But having said that, one of our stops was Knoxville, Tennessee. Had a camp down in Knoxville, Tennessee. Did a really great job. Couple of the parents, I think they sort of were like the hosts, I think, of our coaching staff, because we'd stay with host families. Got with me at the end of that camp and said, hey, do you have any interest in coming to the US and coaching and things like that? So long story short, that sort of turned into that deal. So when I first came to the US, I lived in Knoxville, Tennessee for 6 years. Went to a community school, thought I'd do everything backwards. Didn't do my college through New Zealand, Australia, or England. I was too busy playing and living the good life. Thought I came over to this country, grow up a little bit. So I actually ended up going to a community college to start with, obviously, because it's cheaper for internationals. started working and going to school down in Knoxville, Tennessee, and then had the opportunity through the camp system. I remember you talking to Ralph Lundy and Van Taylor. You mentioned him back in the day. I've known Ralph since the camp circuit too, so that brings that back up. And then had the opportunity to become an assistant with Lincoln Memorial, both the men's program and the women's program. So spent the next 2 years going back and forth between Knoxville, which is about an hour and 15 minutes. So geographically, Harrogate, Tennessee is right at the tip of Tennessee, Virginia, and Kentucky. So you'd probably miss it if you didn't have to go through it. Tiny little place. But good sporting programs, to be fair, good sporting programs. They didn't have a football program, so their big sports was baseball, and then soccer, men's and women's, and tennis, and some of the Olympics alongside basketball. So yeah, that's how I ended up there.
Yeah, I could be wrong. So was H the coach back then when you were at Lincoln Memorial?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
There, I know that was his nickname.
Yeah.
The Brazilian. What was it like under him? Obviously, he was a legend there. Then he unfortunately, left the school a few years ago. So share what your experience, and what did you learn under him?
I mean, we had, great experience to be able to work with the men's team as well, not just the women's team. And I think that was a little bit different, especially back in the day. It's not really, you don't really find a lot of females in the male game in any sort of level, in any sort of sport.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a taste for, and we'll get into it a little bit deeper here when I come to UK, but I got a taste for being able to coach both sides. So that was interesting. Working under, and I can probably speak honestly about this, working under any coach, working under and working with, has been very rewarding, to the sense of, I mean, you guys know, you learn so much. You learn more, I think, about yourself and how you would do things if you were given that opportunity through these experiences. So, I mean, again, any coach, he was fantastic.
Yeah, you could interject his name, because the last name is escaping me. Sale is somebody, but share with us who it is.
It's gone from me too. So you're talking to another old person. So we're going to have to Google that one, Ryan.
Ryan been on that. It's he just goes by H. That's how
he goes by H. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice guy. Like I say, Brazilian. I don't know if you know this, fellas. It was obviously an NAI school back then, trying to recruit, all the foreigners to. You heard where the school was, but they were so skillful.
Very good.
Yeah, I mean, it was very. I got to see him play a few times on some video that was sent to me, and it was very, very, typically like a Lindsey Wilson, Ray Wells, team. Very, very similar to that.
Players from all over.
Yeah.
Players from all over. Kenya, South Africa,
Yeah, you mentioned, Ralph Lundy and working for Southern Select Soccer Academy. Share with us, what was that like, the first few years? You're a female, you're an outsider, you're not in the South Carolina mafia, okay. Trying to break the door down between, Jody Smith, Pete Peterson, Ralph Polson. I'm sure I'm missing a bunch, but, and then you gelled with them, obviously, like you just said. So what was it like there? Because we know, the staff was never sleeping, right? You guys were up at 6 a.m., right?
Yeah.
Working your butts off. I mean, the stories I've heard from a bunch of people who've worked in, it's like, oh no, you work.
Yeah.
So what were some of your experiences, working at?
I mean, to be around those guys, actually, I think I snuck through the back door to get into that program. I actually think I got into having the opportunity to work with Ralph at his camps through my time working in the Clemson camps with Ray and Tracy Leone back in the day. Okay. So that's how I think I got into that niche. And then through ODP, working with Region 3, knowing those guys or again, it's connections. But just being around, I mean, he's a legend. He's a legend in the game. He's one of the nicest people, that you'll ever meet. He'll do anything for anyone. So it was fun to listen to your guys' podcast with him back then, because it's just bringing back all these memories. But just such an honor, I think, to be around guys of that caliber and like-minded. But yeah, you worked from dusk till dawn. I mean, yeah, that you look back now, and obviously that would probably never happen aside from his camp still. But he did it right. It was the right way to do it. He treated everybody, all the kids with respect, and that's why they keep coming back. It was just such a great environment, such a great learning environment for not just the players, but for coaches alike. Yeah, I mean, I was just fortunate, as I said, I think snuck through the back door into that one.
Yeah. Credit to Ryan. The gentleman's name is Helio Diana. D-A and A. I think he's living in North Carolina somewhere. I don't know. I don't know if I thought that's where he moved to, but I'm not sure.
I think you're right. And he was only there for the first year. When I was there that last year, I'd been there previously too. So yeah.
Gotcha.
Just had a brief stint with him, but yeah. Great guy.
So all of a sudden, boom, you get a job at UK. University of Kentucky. You're the assistant women's soccer coach. You were there for 4 years, 2001 to 2005. Again, take us down the pathway here, because you've just stepped up your level. NAI to the SEC, and again, take us. How you got there, who recruited you to go on the interview. What made you feel? I'm curious that you thought you could coach there.
Yeah, that's a good question. I basically got recruited by Warren Lipka, the head coach himself. Again, camp circuit. I'm blaming everything on the camp circuit. That might have to be the tagline of this podcast. Camp circuit and connections got me everywhere. And I think being a female, excited, willing to work hard, willing to learn, I think was one of the big things back then, because there weren't that many. So I think that was really important. But again, camp circuit, I came up to the University of Kentucky one summer and did some sessions with Warren and his staff. And then from there, I got a phone call. I remember I was back in Tennessee and I got a phone call, and Warren said, "We've been working on this for some time. We now have it approved that we can hire a second assistant. Would you want the job?" And there wasn't really even an interview process. It was like, it's yours if you want it type thing. So again, that's like that was then. That probably doesn't happen now.
No, it doesn't.
I got lucky, but obviously got to know Warren, got to know his staff, got to know the University of Kentucky and the support staff and everything. A lot when we were at the summer camp. So had a good understanding, I think, of what he was doing with his program, where he wanted to go. So the phone call, when he called, it was pretty easy. It was pretty easy to make that decision, because as you said, you're at this level here, which was great. It was a great opportunity for me at Lincoln Memorial, and I'm blessed to have it, because I actually finished my degree at Lincoln Memorial as well. But then having the opportunity to come to UK again, phone call, think about it, thought about it overnight, called him back, said it'd be kind of a no-brainer for me to not take this position. So I landed up in Lexington, Kentucky.
Share with us what type of adjustments you had to make, knowing that you were, again, going to be playing in the SEC.
I think this is unusual for me to actually talk about myself, because I'm actually pretty humble, and I don't really like to do it a lot. But I'm confident. I'm confident in what I do. I'm confident in the way that I continue to learn and grow, even now, even if you've been in the sport or been in your career for however long you've been. And I think if you stop learning, you're off track. You need to look for something else. So I think I'm confident in my abilities, my knowledge, whether it be limited at that point in time. Willingness to learn, I think, is another thing that I really get excited about. And again, not just coaches, but players and anyone that's around me. You want to surround yourself with those sort of people that you have the ability to learn. Totally different beast. And probably in hindsight, had no idea really what that meant. Being in the SEC in a Power 5 school at that time. But again, I couldn't close the door on that one. That's just such a tremendous opportunity. And obviously when you're there and you're experiencing it for the first time, then it's probably the sit back moment of, oh, this is at this level now. So, but yeah, no, confident in everything that I did, and obviously had great staff around us to continually learn and grow.
Yeah, share with us. You not only were the assistant coach, but a few years later, you were the associate head coach.
Yeah.
Besides the pay scale, what responsibilities were added to your plate with that title?
We had the ability, and this was what was great, both under Warren Lipka and even John, when he was the head coach. I was there the second go around. My responsibility, I think, really changed when I finished my first stint at UK, as I now moved into the recruiting coordinator position.
Yeah.
And we did a great job of bringing in, top 10, top 20 classes in the nation. From there, moved to High Point, continued that role even as a head coach. So when I came back to UK, the second stint, and ended up being associate head coach with John Lipsitch, it was more of obviously anything under the programming, the admin, all everything it takes to run a program, but more so the recruiting coordinator was added to my plate a little bit more, which I love doing. It's a beast, and it is not fun. And people go, well, you get to go to some great places across the US. And you're like, yep, you do. But all you're looking at is green grass and a hotel room. So
Right. Yeah.
not a lot happens outside of that. But I love that role, identifying kids and, hopefully giving them the ability to reach their goals throughout their whole process. So it's recruiting coordinator was probably that next step up.
Yeah, you mentioned education, and fellas, we've had some people on who've, of course, had USA license, which she does. We've had people on with the Welsh, right, licenses. She's got her English FA, and this is the first one I did not know, the Australian level 1 and 2. So share with us how you would equate some of these education programs to the U.S. based on your experience in both the English FA and the Australian.
Isn't it nuts? Isn't it nuts that I think soccer is one of the only sports in the U.S. that requires a license? Am I correct on that?
I don't think Mike Krzyzewski
Yes.
has a license.
Well, I don't know if it requires a license, but that's a resume thing.
Yeah.
Because I think now, okay, yeah, I guess at the higher levels, if you get to the pros and everything, U.S. Soccer
Sure.
says you have to have an A license or whatever it is.
Yeah. No, I just learned that
Well,
the other day.
UEFA requires it. UEFA requires it, but then again, there's soccer in a cesspool like ours is. So
Yeah.
For the record, USA football, being American football, does have a licensing course for their youth coaches.
They use stuff. Okay.
Yes, there is a certification process for youth coaches in that sport, as they're trying to work on coach development and continued education. That's fairly recent, though, I believe.
Okay. He is a man full of knowledge.
Oh, he is.
How that compares, I think it's really based on the country and their ideals and their philosophy and the way that they go about it as to how they do their licensing. I actually enjoyed obviously getting my Australian level 1 and 2 in Australia. That was a different beast, but more so getting the FA in England, that was totally different. I was the only female, I think, with about 32 coaches total
Wow.
And Jim, my coach at the time, got me on that course. They're hard to get on. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, only about 15 or 16 passed.
Wow.
So that's an extremely high level and a hard course to pass. But being the only female there was a little intimidating at the time. But again, confident in what I do. So
yeah, what stands out with your answers to me is, first, why was the English FA coaching license so hard? And B, what did you enjoy so much about the Australian license?
Why it's so difficult, I think, because look at the pass rate. They don't pass a lot of people. They don't pass coaches just to pass them. Yeah, I think there's a certain amount of time back then. There was a certain amount of time if you did not pass that test, then you would have to wait a certain amount of time before you could re-up for that one. So that was an interesting one. But that's in England. That's the English game, right? That's it. So in order to get on that circuit, it's pretty difficult. But again, being the only female, intimidating. I'm sure obviously that's changed in this day and age. Australia, more of a just goes in tune with our countries over there. More of a relaxed environment, and especially back there early on. Again, football hasn't been in that country for as long as it's been in other countries, especially in England and Europe. So licensing was at its early stages over there. So a little bit more laid back, a lot more diversity in that programming.
Yeah.
And then you're in Australia, and it's the sun always shines. Just gotta be happy.
You mentioned High Point. Let's get into that a little bit. First, a few things about High Point. How did you find out about the opening? What made you feel that you were ready for that next move? Because talent-wise, you're going to step down a little bit, right? And Evie, and I think John Boa, who hired her.
Woody Gibson.
Woody Gibson.
Yep.
So
You guys know Woody?
Very well.
We all know.
Hand over your heart. We know Woody like Ralph Lundy.
Yep, exactly.
You're talking to some dinosaurs here, Michelle. So we are Jurassic. We knew all these people.
I gotta ask you guys some questions. Woody is amazing. How I got into that gig. This is a funny story. Ronnie Kovaleski Hill. You guys know Ronnie?
Yeah.
Played for Robbie Church at Duke. Got into the coaching gig. Obviously was a coach at Vanderbilt for a long time. Good friend. She calls me up one day when I'm at UK, because obviously I knew her throughout when she was at Vanderbilt and we're at UK. So obviously have that SEC connection. She called me up one day and said, the High Point job is open for their head coach. I'm putting your name in for it. And I was like thinking, this is on the telephone. This isn't, face to face or anything. I think my answer was, Ronnie, I don't want to go to a military school. Thinking High Point, West Point there was some correlation. Like, no idea, right?
Well, Woody's a military guy.
So she did. She went through with what she said. She put my name in. Got a call from High Point to if I was interested to come down and interview. So I went through the process. What led me to go through the process? My time at UK, you get to a point, I think, where you start to have, and obviously when you're in a coaching environment, you're all together, you're all on the same page, you're all following, everything that we need to ensure that what we're doing is correct programming, culturally, all the things, right? But you get to a point, I think, in your career that you're like, okay, we're doing it this way. If I was in this situation, what would I do? And so sort of a lot more self-reflecting, I think, through those months leading up to that. How would I have made an adjustment there, or, tactically thinking on the game, if we'd lost a game, what would I do? And really started to dig deep and asking myself those sort of questions. So that sort of led me to, when this opportunity came available, okay, let's go see. And I'd been on a couple of previous interviews at places. Utah State was one of them. That was extremely strange. So I went down to High Point, and my word, the vision that Dr. Nito Cobain, the president, had at that time, and everything that he talked through, and everything, obviously meeting Woody for the first time and meeting other staff members, you could tell, and you could really get such a comfortable feel on that campus that they were going places, that things were going to start to happen at High Point. And there's a lot of schools that you go to say that we're rebuilding, we're building, we're doing this, we're going to have this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, right? But how many times does that actually come to fruition? Nito said the same thing. He mapped out exactly what he wanted to do, his plan with the campus, and how he wanted to expand and how he wanted to enhance every sport within High Point University. And he's on the list of top 10 communicators in the world for a reason. He could sell anything. So he sort of sold that vision. And that really did it. I think that really did it. Obviously, again, the feel on the campus and just the forward thinking and the way that they sort of had planned, this is what's going to happen. And the timeline that they had that into effect was pretty amazing. So it was kind of, let's do this. Let's see if we can do it. And let's see if actually everything that he says is going to come about. And sure enough. But it was the feel more than anything.
Were you surprised how quickly you had success? Because, and I'm going to say success here is you were Big South tournament champions and you got in the NCAA in 2 years, which is pretty impressive. Why do you think it happened so quick? I mean, normally it takes a little bit, to get in, and some luck. Mm-hmm. So share with us, what you felt that the success was at that time.
I'm not sure we had some luck. I'm going to tell you a couple of stories that you'll be laughing about, especially goalkeeper stories. I think more than anything, again, confidence in my ability and the staff that I brought in to be able to build something sustainable, I think is really important. It's key. Ensuring that we bring in players of like-minded, and the difference between that you sort of see with the Power 5 schools and the athletes at the Power 5 schools and the athletes that you bring into, I guess some people class it as mid-major. There's a substantial difference from different backgrounds. They hold themselves more accountable than we would ever really have to, because they come from those backgrounds where not everything, and this isn't stereotypical, or I'm not disrespecting anyone who plays at those Power 5 schools and top schools across the nation, because they deserve to be there. But they had a different mindset about how they went about their business. And they came from all different walks of life, all different backgrounds. Not everything was sort of handed to them. They had to really work to get where they were and to be given opportunities. So I think that more than anything enabled us as a staff to be able to build a culture and build a program, again, as we said, sustainable. So if I left one day, which obviously I didn't know if I was going to ever leave or if I'd be there for a while, if I'd retire there, what the case would be, but sustainable in the sense that we could continue to grow and be successful in everything that we did there. So I think that more than anything, we were able to bring in amazing athletes, amazing people through getting to know them, obviously in the recruiting process, and really being able to handpick, I guess, to a point of the players that you wanted to bring into your program. So I think that was first and foremost. Instilling a culture that the players had ownership on, I think is one of the biggest things, that they had a big part of. Hey, this is how we want this program to run, and we want to be invested in it, and not just players on the team, but we want to do this and leave a legacy, and for players to come through, I think is really important as well. And then the fact that we actually did win a championship is, you're right. It's not easy to do in the time frame that we did it. And especially more so now that I tell you a funny story, that actually the year that we won the championship, we had 9 season-ending injuries. I think it was.
Wow.
9 season-ending injuries. We actually, the day before we went to UNBC's tournament, we had 3 goalkeepers. One was already out with injury. The other one was injured in a game, the game leading up to this event. And then our 3rd string goalkeeper got injured in training the day before we were supposed to leave. So that night, we, as a staff, heads in, recruit, just going, okay, what are we going to do? How do we solve this problem? We leave the next day. We're going on a bus to UNBC. How do we solve not having a goalkeeper? We don't really have any field players that could fill that role. Trying to dig out everything. And we ended up getting a women's basketball player on campus. She hadn't started her season yet, so we were fortunate. It was a kid that had played soccer back in high school, so years and years ago for her. She was obviously a basketball player. She was huge. She was tall, very athletic. And we had to go to the men's soccer team and ask to borrow a pair of cleats, and gloves. To be fair, we went to the men's goalkeeping and the coaches there, and we were like, hey, we need borrow a pair of gloves. We've got this goalkeeper. She's filling in for us. We don't have anything her size, et cetera, et cetera. And so we ended up, Erica was her name. Erica was on our team until the end of the season. She actually, I think, had 7 shutouts for the rest of that season. We went to the UNBC tournament. We ended up actually winning it, which was so bizarre. She did a couple of things that you guys will laugh about being in goal. Player on the opposition's coming down she's coming down sort of wider of the goal on the outside, and our goalkeeper sort of steps completely out of the goalkeeping picture. Like the goal's now on the goalkeeper's left-hand side, and she's off to the right. No idea where she is or what she's doing, right? So obviously we were up at this point. I think we're up 4-0, close to the end of the game. Player obviously ends up scoring, wide open goal. Our goalkeeper, Erica, she turns, and to go get the ball, she went through the goal, lifted up the back of the net to go get the ball and bring it back into the field of play. And we're just dying laughing on the sideline. And the coach, I think we were playing UNBC at that time, the coach on the other team was looking down at us going, we just scored on you. Why are you laughing type thing? And didn't understand what, obviously what we've been through to actually get a goalkeeper on that field. And then in a conference game, we were down at Coastal Carolina. We were leading 1-0. There was about under 5 minutes left in the game. And I think this was to put us top of the table. Under 5 minutes left in the game. Ball was going out of bounds over the end line for a goal kick, for our goal kick. She proceeds to go and do one of these basketball moves, races over to stop the ball going over the end line, swings it in behind her back and puts it right back into the mixer, like right around the 12-yard area. Thankfully, we ended up winning the game 1-0. After the game, she comes up and she goes, Coach, I'm so sorry. I'll never do that again. But she was just like distraught, trying to save the ball like a basketball play. But so, yeah, good stories, good times.
Yeah. I want to go back to, the coaching aspect. If you had a chance to go back to New Zealand as a talent scout at the national level, would you do it now?
It's funny. It's funny you say that. And I'd be entertained, actually, absolutely entertained by having the ability and the opportunity to probably do something like that. It's funny that you say that, though, because I've got a good friend who actually put in for the national team New Zealand head coaching job 2 stints ago. and he's always been my mentor, and I love him to death. And he's always been in the mindset, if he'd gotten that job, he wanted me to go back there and be on the national staff with him. So it would definitely be something that I would entertain, for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good answer. Obviously your tenure at High Point ends. How do you end up back in Kentucky? Okay. Again, share that path, because, you've moved around, but it seems like it's all in Lexington, whether it be for Commonwealth Soccer Club, Lexington Football Club, and now Lexington Sporting Club. So again, the profession, as we know, fellas, you get hired to get fired, right? We all know that. We've been there. Share with us how you get back into the state of Kentucky.
Yeah, that's another head scratcher. You talk about going from country to country and such amazing, beautiful countries. Not saying that the US isn't, but then I land in Knoxville, and then I land in Lexington, and then High Point, and then back to Lexington. It's a head scratcher for sure. But through my time at High Point University, John Lipsitch was the head coach at Charlotte, which was probably about an hour away from High Point University. And through our times at our respective programs, we coached in the ODP and the Region 3 program, which is where we got to know a lot of those great coaches out there on the East Coast. We ended up coaching a team together, an ODP team together for 2 years, an older female team, and we ended up winning, went undefeated for 2 years. And you're talking about playing, the Floridas of the world and the North Texas, South Texas back in the day in ODP. So you're talking about some really respectful programs. And we ended up, again, undefeated. So getting to know each other through our time coaching that program. And then, again, just getting to know each other. I went down and saw his program. He'd come up and see my program, and we'd support each other. And again, more learning experiences more than anything. So then he got offered, I didn't actually know, I don't think I knew at the time that he was going for the head coach job here at the University of Kentucky. And this is sort of in his sort of wheelhouse in terms of region and area, because he was originally from North Carolina, but his wife is from Ohio. So he spent a lot of time. He started the OP program, Ohio Premier Club program, back in the day. So he sort of knew this area. So I think the University of Kentucky was always on his mind as to his next step. Again, I wasn't privy to the fact that he was applying for it or even going through the interview process. But again, phone call one night, Sunday night, I remember it distinctly. He calls me up and says, I've accepted the University of Kentucky head coaching job, and I'd like for you to come with me. Primarily to bring me back because he knew I'd been here. He knew that we'd been successful in the first stint when I was here. I think we got as high as number 7th in the nation on the first go around here at Kentucky. And so he knew that I knew the landscape, the community, the environment, the school itself. So it sort of made sense in his eyes. And obviously us being aligned, working through our respective programs in North Carolina. And then having the ability to coach with each other for 2 years with the ODP program and being very successful. I was his first call. So calls me late Sunday night and says, I'd like you to come here, take some time to think about it and get back to me. And at that time, we're doing well with my program at High Point. And again, leaving that program was extremely, you look back now and you look in hindsight, but leaving that program, I left it in an amazing place. I think our staff and the players that we had were just, they're just so great people, great community, great school, great players. We were just fortunate with what we had going there. But I actually left it in an amazing place. Those players that we recruited into that program when I left actually went on to win three conference championships after we'd left. So again, leaving it in a better place than when you get it. But coming back to the SEC from High Point, ability to be associate head coach with John, and the ability to sort of write the program, so to speak, because there's no excuse, I think, at the University of Kentucky or any school in one of those Power 5 schools to not be successful through the support that they get from the administration, facilities and sort of everything. And they had the mindset of what, I don't know if you've been through Kentucky or Lexington through your travels, but what they're doing with the athletic facilities is first class, as always, with all their sports. And they had that vision. And so knowing Mitch Barnhart at the time, who was the athletic director, he still is, and everything that he stood for, it was just the chance to put the University of Kentucky back on the map, I think, more than anything, and bring in great players and give them an opportunity.
Yeah. Let's, jump into the Women's World Cup. Obviously, you're wearing some U.S. stuff. I'm wearing some stuff as usual. Sort of want to jump into it. And I don't know if Ryan's got the groups. Sort of want to put you on the spot, get your opinions. There's 8 groups. I don't know if Ryan, I'm sure Ryan's working on this. So let's talk about, Group A, which is New Zealand, Norway, Switzerland, and Philippines. Who are the 2 teams you foresee coming out of here?
That's going to be an interesting group. Of course, I'm always going to go for countries that I've lived in. So I've got to be a little bit biased and go for New Zealand. But again, we match up with Norway. So that will be an interesting. I'm probably pretty sure Norway will come out on top of that group, but I'm hoping that we can at least perhaps get the second spot. I don't know a lot about Philippines. Obviously, they're an incoming country, because this is the first time we've had 32 teams, right?
Right. Yep.
Yeah, so it's a jump up. So we've got an interesting mix of new countries coming into it, which is tremendous. And I'm not that privy with Switzerland. So again, I'm going to go for obviously my country and Norway for sure on that group.
All right. Group B, a little bit harder, I think. Canada, Nigeria, Australia, and Ireland.
Yeah. Again, a country that I've lived in. Aussie, I think they are one of the top nations in their game, respectively, right now. I mean, look at their previous wins. They've had some big time wins coming into this World Cup. So I think they're going to be a contender. But yeah, that group's difficult. Nigeria could be a really dark horse.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah.
Yes. So I wouldn't be surprised if they squeak through. Canada, again, it's going to be interesting to see how that country does with everything that's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about that. When you say quote behind the scenes, the Canadian Soccer Federation, big financial mess, as you're alluding to, cannot get the money they need from sponsors to get to the next level. It appears just some misspent money. Obviously, hopefully that won't affect the women's performance here. We move on to Group C with Japan, Costa Rica, Spain, and Zambia.
You got to go for Zambia, right? Didn't they just beat Germany 3-2?
They did.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Could be a little bit of a dark horse. I like Spain. It depends what team they're bringing, because they're dealing with their own set of issues, which is sad. But hopefully they've incorporated some of their players back into the mix. But I love the way they play.
Michelle, who played the 13-year-old young lady the other day? Was that South Africa, or was that in a full international because of contract disputes?
It was. Oh gosh, who was it?
Africa or it was? That's not Spain, I don't think, but a 13-year-old girl.
It was either South Africa or Nigeria.
One of the two.
I know Nigeria is having their own set.
Pay everybody the same amount of money. We won't have these problems. Okay, go ahead, Michelle.
Love that.
All right. I think Japan, is going to sneak up on people.
They're always good. Always good. They're such a technical country.
Absolutely.
They just, I think, in my opinion, the thing that they sort of lack is the physicality of the game and maybe the pace a little bit more, but love to watch him play with the ball, move the ball.
So that's a very tough group in your opinion.
Yeah.
That looks dangerous. I didn't know about Zambia. That's okay.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to Group D, which interesting. England got to be the favorite here. China, Haiti, and Denmark. I think Denmark's playing well. What are your thoughts, Michelle?
Yeah, agreed. I got to go for England, another country. See, I'm going to run out of countries that I've lived in soon. It's not happening right now, but England, I think, again, they're coming off the UEFA that championship, so they're doing extremely well right now. So I'd like to see them go a long way. Denmark, I'm in agreement, and China's obviously very similar to Japan. Very technical, can move the ball, can do some things. So I'm not sure. It's going to be a struggle for Haiti, but I might be with you on the Denmark.
Yeah. All right, we go to Group E. Obviously, it's USA here. Got to be one of the favorites. Netherlands, Portugal, and Vietnam. How important, in your opinion, is obviously the first game's against Vietnam, but then we go right into Netherlands. And the Netherlands obviously played Portugal. There's probably a lot of writing on that Netherlands-Portugal game right out of the gate.
Right out of the gate. That's a tough one. Yeah, that's a tough one because you nailed it. I mean, USA's got Vietnam. You expect that to be not a pushover, but an easier sort of level game for those guys, which can either help you or not. But USA's got a great mindset. I mean, that whole camp, they do things the right way. But Netherlands, Portugal, you're exactly right. That's going to be interesting to see. I think that result will ultimately lend itself to either one of those teams getting through. Netherlands has always been fairly decent, but people are talking about Portugal. They're talking about that team a lot. Could be a dark horse is what they're thinking. So they might come in and make some waves.
Yeah. Group F, you got France, Brazil, Jamaica, Panama.
I haven't lived in any of those countries.
Okay.
So next group.
France, I've liked France for a long time. Like the way they've been playing. So I'm a big fan of France. Brazil is another one that people are talking about. So I haven't seen them in a little while. I mean, Marta's playing is she playing, right? She's in her sixth one.
Yeah. Marta's playing. Yeah.
Golly.
This is her final. This is going to be her final World Cup, she said.
Yeah. Right.
Amazing athlete. Amazing athlete. I'd like to see them go through just to see how far they can get. But they're always talented. I mean, men's and women's, they're always talented. So I'm thinking France and Brazil for those two.
Yeah. All right. We go to Group G, which an interesting one here: Sweden, South Africa, Italy, and Argentina.
That is an interesting mix. People are talking about Argentina. That could be not a lot of people know about them. So it's going to be interesting to see how well they'll do. Sweden, I think you've got the pedigree on that one. I think you've got great coaching there. So I think that they probably have a shot in. Not too sure about South Africa and Italy. What's your views on that one?
Italy's ranked 14th in the world.
Yeah,
on the
I was going to say,
side.
I think Italy's probably favored over Argentina in my opinion. I totally agree. I like how you described Sweden, the pedigree. They've been around. This isn't their first. They're not rookies, and they know a lot of times how to close out games. So
they do. Yeah.
Well, Argentina's current world ranking's 34th, so that puts them in a really interesting mix. And obviously South Africa playing the 13-year-old.
Yeah.
Earlier, that's going to be an interesting one, I think.
Yeah. We go to Group H, the final round or the final group here: Germany, Colombia, Korea, and Morocco. I think this is a big toss-up besides Germany.
Yeah, I agree. Germany's, in my opinion, would be a no-brainer to go through. Again, great coaching on that side of things. Yeah, golly, that's it.
Colombia's ranked 26th in the world right now.
What about Korea?
South Korea, not up there.
I don't think so.
Votes.
I'm scrolling.
Good answer, Brian. Good answer.
When I've got my lists up, you know how I am. I've got my lists and I'm scrolling through and I'm like, I don't see their flag. Like,
okay, fair enough.
That could be a spot for someone to grab.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one because they could make some waves. I mean, they are 17th actually.
Korea.
They're right below China.
And
right ahead of Iceland in the world rankings. I just missed them. So I mean, they played well, weren't they, in the She Believes?
Yeah.
They played in the She Believes Cup and did okay. I mean,
Well,
All right,
but-
Michelle, we're going to put you on the spot. Sort of a yes or no question. Does the USA win it?
oh, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. I mean, I think they'll do amazing, but they are missing some key players. They're missing some key players, but an opportunity for the youngsters, right? Next man up, next woman up, so to speak. So,
That Rodman kid did pretty well.
she's good, isn't she?
She's
yeah,
very
she
good.
subbed
Trinity.
in at halftime of that last match and
That-
had 2,
What a
right? They
brace.
won 2-0 and she had 2.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they've got some dangerous and some dynamic young players that I sort of, in my mind, are sort of fearless because they don't know any better right now, which is good. You want that.
Yeah. Like sometimes
You
it's a
want that.
really good thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I definitely see him getting to the final 4. Not sure I can go.
Okay. All right. That's all as far as you're going to comment. All right. We will be able to check these results. Ryan, I'm sure, will replay her comment. Final 4 is what she's picking. All right.
Final 4.
Okay. All right.
At least.
At least.
So if the U.S. doesn't win it, though, who's your next?
Oh, okay.
That's the important question to me. Like, if you can
Okay.
pick anybody but the United States,
Okay.
who is it? Who is it that comes in and takes it?
England.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Beat the U.S. a couple months ago, right? And women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we're taking the USA in the final 4, making it. And if USA doesn't get there, she's got England. All right. Well, we will see here in the next 30, 40 days. So, Evie, I'm going to swing it back to you and John and Ryan. Michelle, thank you so much. We
That was
really
brilliant.
appreciate all
Yes,
the-
Michelle, that was it. Yeah, that was excellent. That was more than we could have hoped for, and again, we appreciate you taking time. I know you're a busy person with all the stuff that's going on, but we're trying to. This is our first sort of ode to the Women's World Cup episode, and so you were the leadoff batter for this, and we appreciate that. And we're between watching the Gold Cup and Ryan almost having a heart attack and Women's World Cup coming up.
I'll struggle during this Women's World Cup too, because you know what it's going to be like for me. It's 3 a.m. One of the matches is at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
And it's going to take
well,
everything in my power not to text you guys.
At least you're,
Like, hey,
feel free to text. I won't read them at 3 a.m. But,
Right.
EV's used to 3 a.m. text, knowing me. Believe me.
that's right.
yeah. Well, I'll text and Evie will be like, "What's Boa want now?" And then it'll be like, oh my God, it's
exactly.
Ryan. He's
Hey,
wanting
Michelle, I
these
do have a
games at
quick
3 a.m.
Michelle. I have a quick food question since you brought up food earlier. Evie,
Oh, yeah,
and we
Mike.
were working. We were at the Rugby Sevens EV out in Vegas a
Mhm.
few years ago.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Really cool sport for somebody like me that never wants to get hit. But they did this huge.
Run fast.
Oh man, those guys were just ridiculous. But a huge food court outside the
Yeah.
stadium, and they had a New Zealand pie.
Yeah.
They were making pies in England, but they were from New Zealand. You
Uh-huh.
got to get me a recipe because they had a
You-
line. Everybody ate there all day for 3 days.
I'm telling you, between Sam Stockley and myself, Sam Stockley is the men's sporting director in Lexington Sporting Club, and I'm the women's sporting director. Between he and I, because he's from England and I'm from New Zealand, we're going to open up a fish and chip shop at our stadium when we build it here in Lexington. We're going to open up a New Zealand. We're going to have coffee. We're going to have pies and sausage rolls. I can get you a pie recipe from New Zealand. It is the business.
You're welcome to come
business.
back on the show.
Well, and
That's all it takes, right?
yeah, and speaking, I'll tell my Auckland story. When I was my dad flew in the Pacific in World War II, Michelle, and so
wow.
he spent his liberties in Australia, right? And
Yeah.
so he went on after World War II to be a pilot, and so we got to fly all over the place for free, which was great. Well, we did this is the Australia New Zealand that Pop flew in World War II tour. So we go to and we stopped in Fiji on the way for a couple of days, which was cool. And then and then we go to New Zealand, we go to Auckland, and you mentioned fish and chips, and boys, I'm telling you, when we were, and I was 14 years old, I think at the time. I ate fish and chips for every friggin' meal.
Oh man, when they're done right, there's nothing better.
Yeah, and it was you went down to the fishmonger, which was right on the water there, and they did fish and chips, wrapped it in newspaper, and off you went. And it was, and I don't know what, 60 years later, I still remember it. I mean, it was unbelievable. And
but they still do the same thing. They still wrap it in newspaper and it's right. Yeah, it's fresh.
Yeah.
It's so fresh.
Unreal.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Unreal. So, well, again, thank you very much for joining us, and it's been great. And as I said, you're the first installment of our Ode to Women's World Cup, and we would love to have you back at some point.
Episode 1 of season 3, Evie. This is season 3.
Is this episode 1 of season 3?
Episode 1 of season 3. Season 2 started in July of 22, so we're there. Here we are.
You guys are big time.
Yeah,
EV, hell yeah.
And here I was saying it wasn't an anniversary or anything. So
I thought you knew it was the anniversary, and you were just going off on a tangent. I was like, "Good job! How does he remember?"
I had no idea. No idea.
Season 3.
Season 3. That's awesome, guys, and I'm honored. Thanks so much for inviting me in. It's great.
I think 3 seasons is longer than Joni Loves Chachi lasted.
That's true. That's true.
Spin-off from
Ryan will look it up. Ryan will look it up.
I'm looking right now.
All right.
All right, Bose, are you ready? Because I know you're chomping at the bit with transfer news and all that stuff.
Yeah,
Are you ready for your twirl around the European League?
Joni Loves Chachi only had 2 seasons.
Whoa!
Are you kidding me?
No, they had 2 seasons. 1982, Joni Loves Chachi, 2 seasons. Aaron Moran and Scott Baio.
Yeah, okay.
It aired on ABC from March 23rd of 1982 to May 24th of 1983 for those keeping track at home.
Wow.
The game show. John Bo, before we get started, so your house is getting painted. So where are you living now?
I'm in North Boulder right now. I'll be back tomorrow, but I'm in North Boulder right now, which is a whopping 1.3 miles from South Boulder.
Yeah.
Boulder's tiny, man. Boulder's stuck in the mountain nook. So
does North Boulder have better internet?
Working?
It's working.
Man.
That's why I'm asking. It's working.
See, I live right under the mountain.
You had to go there on the 3rd anniversary. You had to do that.
Yeah. So
you're not asked.
But they're putting fiber optic. Zayo's putting fiber optic all over the place. But Fort Collins, now that you brought it up, Greg Deutsch, who's texting me behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Fort Collins does have cable, hi-fi, I mean, whatever the hell it's called, stereo, Bose,
fiber optic stuff,
whatever, cable now, and we're about to get it. So because the mountain thing is a big problem for all these tech companies.
Yeah. Michelle, you may stay, listen to this. I know since you're a listener, you know what's coming. Or if you got other things to do.
She's like, I'm still here. I haven't bailed.
You can jump. All good with us. So
this is generally where the F-bombs begin.
And now for a little post-show discussion along with Boa's trip around the globe.
Oh, take us on your tour around the European leagues.
Before I do that, I would just like to say a couple of personal, very, very personal things. My sweeper in college, Pat McFarland, his dad and mom are Glaswegians, had a heart attack Friday, and I wanted to tell Patrick we all love him. He listens to this show every week and then calls me and tells me I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. We were also
in other words,
he told you when you were the goalkeeper behind him. So, yeah.
Exactly. I was like, you didn't do your job, man. But then again, like Bruce Gravelar says, then again, where is the defender?
Yeah.
But Patrick just got out of the hospital today. We love you, Pat. We'll see you soon. And then my good buddy, Ken Cleary, you guys might remember Tinsock turned into TSI, Kelly Weddock, and all those dudes. Yep. Ken was their big vice president of distribution with the catalog. He has got a really tough bout with cancer that he pretty much has conquered, and he was at Duke all week. And to his credit, he was wearing a Carolina basketball shirt the entire week.
Ooh, that's
Ken is a Carolina guy.
Wow.
Well, we love Ken Cleary. We love Pat McFarland. Just wanted to say that. We will maybe have them on. They are great. All right. I did mention Trinity Rodman earlier. Have you guys seen this kid play?
I have.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
so Dennis Rodman's daughter. He didn't raise her, but she was born in L.A. on the beach, and she. Short story short, she was going to go to the University of Washington or Washington State, and the COVID hit, and she just said, "Screw it, I'm going to go pro." She's the first million-pound player in North America, Ryan, or in the world. Her salary.
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah,
I know for sure she's the highest paid player in
Yes.
NWSL history.
and
So I would guess that hits world.
yeah,
I'm going to say no on the world.
because you got to think, and then we were talking about Churchy, Duke, and Michelle, who's the young lady that just left early, the Duke player, Michelle Cooper.
Yes.
Had just signed a deal with New Balance, a big deal. They're going to do a whole line of apparel for her and everything. But same thing for this young lady, Trendy Rodman. But nice little change of pace. She reminds me a little bit, EV, of a little Joey Valeni kind of little burst kind of guy.
Oh yeah.
Dino Megaludis type of player.
Yeah.
But they're trying to figure out how to keep her on the field. Apparently, good problem to have. Usually with a young player, come on in the 50th minute.
So according to Statista, it's Sam Kerr.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing, right? Trinity Rodman is up above Sam Kerr based on these stats. I don't see her on here at all. But these are only as of June 2023. So in thousands of US dollars, $513,000, Sam Kerr. Alex Morgan, the Megan Rapinoe, Julie Ertz, Ada Hergberg.
Yep, the young one. The Norwegian.
Yeah, the Norwegian. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Marta at 400,000. So that gives you an idea. I'm going to guess Rodman is somewhere in that mix at this point.
Well, I think she's there. I saw the two commas next to her name, and there's no transfer fee.
Right.
Yeah. I guess the question is is it $1 million a year, or did she sign a 2-year deal for 500,000?
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know, but a nice little player. Obviously got the genes. Her dad was an unbelievable athlete. But I want to start a little bit asking you guys.
4 years, $1,124,000 to answer my own question. There we go.
And probably a nice signing bonus.
Yes.
So
yeah.
What, fellas? And again, we don't rehearse this stuff.
Nope.
I don't know
That's
if
why we're
anyone
looking
can
stuff up
tell
on the
that.
phone.
Kind of obvious.
I don't know if anyone can tell. Think about the biggest global sports upsets. So we got the March Madness. There's one every freaking year, or now 3 and 4 every year, right? We got Joe Namath in NFL, the Super Bowl III. That was a pretty big upset. I don't know a lot of more bigger ones than that. Of course, he was an Alabama guy. Baseball, I don't know. But USA Hockey kind of sticks in my mind.
Yep.
I don't know if the people remember, but it was ridiculous.
It was.
Hold on. You're talking about the Miracle on Ice?
1984, the last time we haven't won it. I don't know. But anyway.
No, that was the last time
we were playing pros. It was college kids playing pros. It was like us, not this extreme, but the U.S. beating Colombia in the World Cup 3-1 or 2-1. It wasn't quite our soccer was probably a little better, but those college kids, it was an amazing game. Watch it if you can on video. Al Michaels made him a legend. But I couldn't really think of bigger upsets, really. I'm sure they have been in rugby. Like I think South Africa beat New Zealand in the Rugby World Cup, and the New Zealand players claimed that maybe they were poisoned, or Australian happened. I can't remember. It was the one in South Africa, so I'm pretty sure they were poisoned. But the reason I bring it up is because I was looking at the odds, and Ryan, thank you for finding the rankings for the women. I couldn't find it anywhere. Is that the FIFA rankings?
Yep.
That's official FIFA. Okay.
Yeah.
So the odds for the USA's 3 opponents are Vietnam, 150 or plus $150,000. So if you don't gamble, you have to bet $100 and you win $150,000. That's a pretty good bet. Whereas if there's a negative number, you bet 100. You got to bet that number to win back the 100. So those odds, and Michelle knows a hell of a lot more about women's football than I do, clearly. But that would be a monumental upset for Vietnam to beat the U.S. ladies, in my opinion, just from the numbers. And then what are we going to call? Why does Holland have 3 names? Does anybody know why? It's the Netherlands, the Dutch, and Holland. I mean,
Yeah.
we're Americans or United States. It's similar, but it just drives me crazy.
We should have
The
asked
Dutch are
Thomas
20
Rondgren that.
The Dutch are 25. They're weird anyway. But the Dutch are 25,000. So plus $25,000. So that'd be a pretty big upset also, but they're a lot better. I don't know if we played them recently, but they're pretty good. And then Portugal, who I think, Ryan, you said was 10th in the world or 12th in the world or something. They're, plus 10,000. So we're not playing anyone in those first 3 games. Germany, what was that quote about you play Germany in the World Cup and it's a game played for 90 minutes and the next thing you know, you lost 1-0.
Yeah.
I don't think we're that kind of team. I don't think women's football is that kind of sport where they go out and just play the Dean Smith 4 corners thing, or like the Germans have done for 5 decades. There'll be goals. I just don't see, it'd be nice to give up a goal for the U.S. to keep them sharp, but I just don't see. And then if they get out, and I was not really clear on this one, Greg Deutsch, if they got to play the runner-up of Group G, which could be Italy or Sweden. Again, I know Italy a little bit from watching the women's Euros, but they're not really going to play anyone. They have 3 games. They got the round of 16. They got quarterfinals. They're not really going to play anyone in the semifinals where they could play Switzerland, Norway, Japan, Spain, because all the 1 versus 2 is all out of the window. So I think for the United States women, you gotta be saying if we don't get to the final, that's a problem. But you gotta be going in saying we're going to win it, right?
Yeah, we are Russia in women's soccer.
We are.
If you're making that
that's right.
comparison with the hockey team.
Yeah, we are the gorilla in the room, and I hope that we go out there and boss the game a little bit. Our boys, I would call them men, but that probably be another World Cup cycle or 2. Our boys could learn a little bit about maybe going out there and just saying, hey, you can't cook us. We're going to be bigger, stronger, faster, and we're just going to beat you, and we're going to bury you. And that's one thing I like about women's football. It's a lot more attacking. They were playing, 4-3-3 a lot before a lot of these men's teams were at a high level. So anyway, it should be exciting. So Ryan, thank you for finding the FIFA's rankings. Do you mind just reading off slowly the top 10, 1 to 10?
Absolutely. So number 1 is us. USA, obviously. Number 2 is Germany. Sweden is number 3.
Wow.
England is number 4. France is number 5.
And they've had a lot. France has had a lot of turmoil too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. España is number 6. Spain. The Broke Federation up north is number 7. Canada, for anybody who's playing at home and isn't sure who the heck I'm talking about, which I would love to discuss that a little bit more later. Brazil is number 8. And honestly, I think that's a low number with this being Marta's last World Cup and already announcing that this is her last World Cup. I think they're going to play out of their minds. The Netherlands is number 9.
Yeah, there we go.
And Australia is number 10.
Where is Norway?
12.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but when the women started in the early 90s where Michelle played, wasn't Norway one of the
Oh, absolutely. And they got one of the top players.
Yeah, big time. Yeah.
I mean, big time. Big time.
And Germany wasn't really, because a lot of countries were late to the game, but I don't know if you guys watched the European Cup final between England and Germany. It was a good game. Germany was missing one of their best players. Could have gone either way. It was great. So, England and Germany, the continental teams, if they can get that mindset of the mine shaft, as they call them in Germany, the men's team, they could upset. When you get to a final, anybody can win, right?
Right. So here's an interesting Norway stat. So they're 12th currently. Their highest ever ranking is 2nd.
Yeah.
Their average rank is 9. Their lowest ever ranking is only 14th.
I just seem to remember
right in that. Yeah, right in that general vicinity of their lowest ever ranking right now.
So it's interesting that they've because they were kind of setting the pace for everyone. I know that the German England thing is going to be interesting because, you know, and like she said, New Zealand, Australia, they're very fervent sports nations. And I was interesting that she said, Greg, like they get along when they're not playing each other.
Yeah.
Did you know that? I never.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty unique. You know, the Scottish would never say that about the English, you know, or the French about the Belgians. Never.
Right.
I hope they lose everything. So I was really interesting culturally that, you know, we can learn a lot from that. So let's shift over to the United States boys soccer team. So somebody explain to me. So is this our third? Is it we have 33 players in the mix, kind of, and we're just rotating because we had the Nations League, right? And didn't some of the European guys play in that?
Yes.
And then we got this Gold Cup thing, and that's really a couple of teams, second teams. This is kind of our second team, right? Am I crazy?
Totally. The B team. I mean, this is interesting. Ryan, you're not allowed to participate. So Evie and John, what country in CONCACAF in this tournament has the most EPL players?
I know.
Most EPL players?
Not foreign, but like playing in.
No. Yeah.
In England, yeah, it's somebody weird like it's like Panama or
It's got to be Trinidad or Jamaica.
Evie's on the board. Jamaica.
There we go. Okay.
Jamaica.
Wasn't Dwight York Jamaican?
Yes.
Yeah.
No. So is he Trinidadian?
Trinidad, yeah.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
Anyway, that's
Anyway,
I never would pick Jamaica right now. I wouldn't have. That's interesting.
Yeah.
While we're on the Jamaican connection, Amal Knight, Jamaican goalkeeper, plays for Lexington SC.
Oh yeah, okay.
So,
and then one of them plays for Bushy up in Pittsburgh.
Right. Yeah. The backup.
Okay.
And then
Yeah.
Well, I'm just hoping, I mean, I know we haven't really had a lot of competition and probably played down to the level of our opponents the other day. Canada was not a good team at all.
No,
I know they're playing for Gordon Lightfoot bootlegs, but still.
So interestingly enough, there's an interesting United States connection and Premier League connection to the Canadian national team. So, Greg, you can't participate in this one. Who is one of the assistants on the Canadian national team that has a connection to MLS?
Oh,
and also the Premier League?
Don't know.
I have no idea.
We have a caller from from Boise though that does. Steve, go on.
I wish I could get that person on actually. So Phil Neville.
Oh shoot, I knew that. Yeah.
So he was with Inter Miami, right?
Yeah.
Is now an assistant with the Canadian national team.
Yeah, not the Neville brothers from New Orleans. The Neville brothers from
not Aaron Neville.
Yeah.
Not Aaron Neville. Singing the George Jones song Grand Tour. No, we're not doing any covers. But yeah, so it was interesting because you would think that Canada would kind of get their stuff together, but there's some real issues in the federation there.
And there were some real issues on the field. Remember how fired up we were, at least I was, before the World Cup. I mean, they were playing a system in the qualifying.
Well,
it was very hard to play. It was very simple. It was like old Norway or, Dagenham and Redbridge in 1982. I mean, it was pretty direct. And but they looked nothing like that against the U.S.
Well, yeah, and they also didn't have any of those players.
They're missing 6 studs.
And
that's what I'm saying. But there's no system in place. Then you're not playing a system. No. You're playing just guys, whatever.
They're just playing to who they had on the field.
They had what? Evie, did you watch the game yourself?
I did not. Okay. But I would guess that Canada has serious depth problems in their soccer.
Big time. Yeah.
Well, the funny thing is the guy who plays in your hometown from Jacksonville University scored the second goal. What's his name, Ryan? Schaffelberg?
Oh, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Great shot, left-footed.
Yeah, right through Matt Miazga's legs.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and Greg, we talked about that. You know, I thought Miazga played a decent match, except for that one moment where he didn't step to that ball.
And
like he just kind of ran alongside him and was like, "Oh, if I keep my body here, I'll be okay." And then the ball goes through his legs, deflects off his leg, puts Turner in a rough spot. He's not making that save.
EV and John, if you have a chance, look at the highlight of Andre Blake. Woo! 2 hands, a phenomenal save toward the end of the game to keep the shutout. I mean,
almost made me talk about
if you talk about technique, 2 hands, top hand, it's like textbook. Probably the save of the game. I think, Ryan, the second save, and I'm not talking about the PKs, is Dwayne St. Clair's tip over against the U.S. That was a hell of a save.
Yeah, we saw some great goalkeeping in those 2 matches, actually.
Yeah.
I thought, Guatemala actually got some decent shots off on Blake.
Yeah, right at him.
The one that he saved on the far post, like there are a bunch of Guatemala fans sitting near me at that point, and I just kept telling them, like, if they don't challenge him to the far post, like, they're not going to score. He's too good. And then they made a great pass and a cross, and he has to dive across the goal to save it on the far post. And they all turned around and looked at me, and I was like, "Yeah, he's that good." And there's a guy sitting next to me, and he goes, "You know something that I don't, right?" And then I showed him the picture of me with Blake from Friday. I was like, "Yeah, he is that good." But yeah, I thought that the U.S. is just lacking the, like, I guess it's the ability to finish the fight to a certain extent,
well,
right?
they
get up one and
and this
just
is
not
like you guys were there. Exactly, Ryan. I was going to say, I'm watching it on TV. It still looks like we're getting the ball and doing 2 step overs and trying to just run around people because we're faster than they are. I don't see a lot of football. We defend better as a team. But who's that kid that was out left that was missing all the sitters in the last game? Cowell or something.
Cowell.
Yeah. He was getting, in college, you get a ball out wide and the defender's already 10 yards back and the guy just runs right at him. I just see that a lot. And
I thought he did pretty well when he subbed in the second half. Better than he had in the previous match for sure.
I'm going to watch the game again. So but again, it's Canada.
Yeah, no, right. I mean,
as Evie says, it's Canada. Yeah,
love Canada. I get that piece. I think there's a lot of work to be done. I think it's interesting that even though they announced Berhalter's coming back, that he doesn't coach this team in this Gold Cup. And the question that I have is,
I mean, he's doing everything, right? He's there.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess, but like,
100%.
Is it one of these situations where they don't have him out there, so if they don't win this thing, they can be like, don't worry, everybody, he's coming back, we'll be fine.
Well,
and in reality, it's like he's got the marionettes, right? He's pulling the strings.
Well, I mean, if we win it, then with these guys, then we do have some depth, a lot more depth in Canada for sure.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, I think, if you guys have watched, go ahead, Ryan. Sorry.
No, you're
go
right.
ahead. Go ahead.
As far as depth goes, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and then from a maturation standpoint, the young goalkeeper thing, jumping like Pat Johnston said, I was like a spider in the goal because I was all jumping around. Matt Turner looks very composed, like a mature kind of pro to me. And he, caused that equalizing goal against Canada, which he would not have done if he was playing the MLS. I'm telling you, because he got the ball 10 yards in this side of the circle and he hit this kind of like, it wasn't like a driven ball, but he hit it to the corner of the 18, which, Big Niall Quinn or Joe Jordan, that's what, you're looking at knocking it down. And that's exactly what they did, corner, boom, got lucky on the goal, but, caused trouble. But again, his job is stopping goals, and he just looks more composed to me, like more settled. So maybe get some more runs going. That's what we need because he's going to have to bail us out if we're going to win, World Cup games. So,
Interesting on Turner, like just an interesting stat. He's faced 25 PKs in his career. How many of them do you think that he stopped?
14.
14.
9.
11.
Okay.
But yeah,
No,
like
he's-
still a lot. Like
No,
he's the
he's-
first U.S. keeper to make 2 PK saves in a shootout.
Yeah, he's got a knack
Um,
for PKs, and some goalkeepers have that.
Yeah, it's really
you know.
it's really good.
Yeah, they get to move now. I never would have let one in.
Yeah. Well, and you know, I was reading an article yesterday or today that you know, he needs to either get put on loan or
Absolutely.
get more games with Arsenal, which isn't going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, so he can play week in, week out over in England or Europe or wherever he is.
People don't understand how hard that league is. David De Gea got run out of Manchester. Now, I know he's not good with his feet, but that's a world-class goalkeeper for over a decade.
Yeah.
So
At the same club.
Yeah, and
And,
who's our
and
goalie?
didn't get a thank you. Didn't give it. It was like a kick out the door, right?
Yeah, who was
Well,
the
this Ten Hag guy's a fucking idiot.
Well,
I'm sorry.
He's
I'm sorry. He's just a fucking idiot.
We'll wait a week because we're going to do a preview because season starts in 33 days. So, but yeah, I agree. I don't know what they're doing there, or I'm not. We can talk about that later. But you know, Turner's got an issue. He's got to play. You know, who's your guy from Denver, EV, that just got promoted with Luton?
Well, yeah, but they didn't sign him.
So what I'm saying, yeah,
They brought in somebody else, and you know, because they're not trusting these kids, and you got to get games under your belt. You just do.
Did he go back to Forest?
He's back with Forest, and he doesn't know what the situation is there because at Forest he was playing behind the French guy.
And the French guy just kept him in the league.
Yeah, got him in. Yeah.
I mean, what do? You're going to bench the guy that kept you in the Premier League for the kid that just got promoted?
Exactly.
No, it's
Exactly.
a totally
So
different.
Yeah, so you got to find it. You got to find another place, and you know Matt's in the same boat except at a higher level. You got to find a place to play.
And you know, EV and I had this conversation.
Got to get games.
Yes,
maybe you, Greg, too. I seem to remember some brewery somewhere once. But we were talking about, you know, little clusters like, you know, you have an MLS, and this was a long time ago. This is like late 90s. You got New York, New Jersey Metro Stars, and how come they can't have 6 or 8 USL teams around New York metro area, right? So that's 1997. And the goalkeepers go play there middle of the week, and they come back and train on Thursday, and they play in Giant Stadium on Saturday. I still don't see that. I think that would be a big benefit to us, goalkeeping-wise, player-wise. And then, you know, what they do in Germany, which is really kind of neat, is they kind of bring in like a John Bush, 38, 39, 40, as the third team goalkeeper. And he trains the backup, who's usually 19, and the pro, who's 26.
right.
But he's the third, but he's the emergency goalkeeper. And but
Right.
he, you know, if they don't have a goalkeeper coach at Kaiserslautern or something, he's training him. But he's like, hey, you know, maybe you shouldn't have come for that cross. That could be kind of important when you're playing at Bayern. So anyway, guys, that's all I got. Back to you, Eves in Nash Vegas.
Okay. Well, closing.
Before
Here
we
go.
close,
Ryan's got it.
I have to cover this because we have to say we talked about it. There is a report from The Athletic that the USL is set to vote on an adoption of promotion and relegation system within its own confines.
Cool.
So USL Championship, USL One, League One, and USL League Two, I hope is kind of what they're looking at. But it's definitely between Championship and League One. And when the Athletic
kids.
Right. And when they reached out to the USL spokesperson, they declined to comment. But I have a little inside information that this report is legit, like that this thing is probably going to happen.
So they're going to subsidize the owners that paid $3 million for a team versus the team that did the Mississippi Hockey Stars for $100,000.
It's interesting. So the majority here, I have the answer to this. Are you ready? You're not going to believe this, but this is the answer that I've gotten from someone connected to the league office that I can say. That's the term I can use, I guess. Most of the teams that are currently in the USL Championship paid less to enter the USL when they entered the USL than the USL League One teams are paying now to get in.
Oh.
So that's how they're going to justify it.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
That was what I was told.
So
yeah.
for you trivia people out there, it's what, $1 million, right, Brian? For a USL League One franchise?
I cannot confirm
wow,
nor deny that amount.
That's a good
But it's-
number. I had no idea. Do you remember what you paid for the Hammerheads, EV?
To be honest with you, I think it was $12,000.
Oh my gosh.
So that was 1993.
No,
And that was the
95,
third.
or was that 95
Yeah.
or 96? Somewhere in there. Well, when was Maddie born?
Maddie was born 95. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, it was 1996.
Yeah.
So that was so there's no MLS.
Nope.
Yeah, first year.
First year of MLS. That's right.
Maddie was born 97.
Yes.
So we were 97.
Yeah.
Okay. First year.
So but I
And
think it was
MLS
$12,000.
then you had like Greensboro Dynamo, Rochester Rhinos,
Yeah.
Minnesota,
Yeah.
and then you
Yeah.
had our division. So
Yeah.
that was $12,000. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's that's a big thing for people to know. They're paid $1 million now.
Oh yeah, well here's something. The USL Championship, like Lou City, Indy 11, 10 million buy-in.
$10 million.
That's
Correct
incredible.
me, Brian.
I
I
never
think
would have
that's
thought
right. I think that's right. But most of the teams entered it at a much lower
Oh, of
price
course.
point.
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
just saying right now it's 10 and 1.
Yeah.
Right now. Yeah. I think you're right. I don't have exact numbers on that. I've not been privy to that
All right,
information as of yet.
so here
But-
I want to get some predictions. So it doesn't matter who starts. Tomorrow night, USA, Panama, Mexico, Jamaica. All right, I'll
United
start.
States.
Anybody? I was like, Greg, you gonna?
I'll start. I'll say USA 2-1. I'll say I want to say 1-0 Mexico, but I'm going to go with Jamaica because I got my connection there. So I'm going to go 1-0 Jamaica.
That'd be awesome. Mexico is like, I don't ever want Mexico to win. I don't. So
I get it.
I would
get
love
it.
if Jamaica won. And hasn't Panama been playing well?
Yeah, Diaz is on fire.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to go against my native country. So we'll go United States, Jamaica. But I would not be surprised if Panama. We were a little lethargic last game, so we'll see.
All right, EV.
I think the U.S. wins. I think Jamaica upsets Mexico.
Oh, okay.
Although I will say this.
That'd be a big.
Yeah, but
Big scalp.
Ochoa is playing very well right now.
Yeah, yes.
And so, when he's playing well,
Guy's
they do well.
ancient.
Yeah, he is, but
He's
so is
like-
Buffon. I mean,
No, I'm just making an observation. I feel like
Yeah.
that guy's been playing my entire freaking life.
Yep, he has. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like he's
So
out there.
okay,
again.
all
right,
before we close on the promotion relegation thing,
Yep.
we're going to whip around the room. We for it or against it?
For it, 100%.
For 100 for it.
What do you think, Ryan?
No, I am for it as long as they do it the right way and don't include USL League 2.
Yeah, well, USL League 2 is college kids, right?
Yeah. Isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, well,
But
can't.
there's you can't. There's just been reports that it is going to be included, and then other reports saying it's not. I want it not to be
Yeah, I agree.
because I wanted them to. Well, I don't want them to leave it alone. I want them to fix the disparity in the divisions, but I want USL League 2 to exist for a player pathway for players to get somewhere. And I would love to see affiliation agreements between League One and League Two teams, where if a League Two player is signed with a club, let's say a League Two club, and then a League One player or League One team needs a loan player, that they can loan them on an amateur deal.
You mean like making sense?
Giving them.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I just want.
Yeah.
There's the problem right
We
there.
need to check.
I know.
On the third division thing, because if a college kid plays in the pros, he can't.
Correct.
So you got to. So unless I'm missing a level in there,
What was the old? You can play play against
play
pros, but
in
you
a
can't
game.
play amongst pros.
yeah. So unless it's changed, and it might have, Greg, you know more than me, but it used to be you had your 7 dates in the spring.
Yeah.
And you could play the Fort Lauderdale Strikers, but you had to play as Greg Deutsch University.
Right.
You
Yeah.
couldn't go in the you couldn't go do it on your.
No, what they do now, in the spring, a lot of the Division I schools will scrimmage the pro teams.
Yes. Butch Lawfer.
Yeah, your college team can play against pros,
That's right.
but your college players cannot play amongst pros.
College baseball plays Major League Baseball every spring. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just one of those. I would just love to see some way for them to, even if it's not like the loan system, something to the effect of like this club can pull from these USL2 teams or have some sort of relationship to know. Like, there's just not enough of that in my mind.
No, I agree.
But
I agree.
That's just the thing that I feel like they need to work on. And for the Gold Cup, I'm saying Jamaica over Mexico. Because I think this is the worst Mexican team I have ever seen.
4 Jamaican picks. Wow.
And I think, and I'll be honest, I think this is the best Jamaican team I've ever seen, top to bottom.
We're like Bob Marley and the Whalers here today.
Yeah, I think that Jamaica's got some talent on that team. Like in almost every position, there's somebody that you're like, oh, I didn't realize he was playing, or when we showed up at training and I was like, oh, like I know that guy. And there's some big boys on the team. There's some big guys, like they're big dudes. And I wouldn't want to go up against them, that's for sure. And then I think that Panama upsets the United States. And I'm not happy about it, but I feel like that the U.S. is going to come out super flat after the emotion of the game against Canada.
Could be right.
I'm really worried.
Where are the games?
The Mexico and Jamaica game is in Las Vegas.
San Diego.
I want to say it's in San Diego, right? Yeah,
it is.
So the other one's in San Diego. But I just feel like the U.S. after that extra time against Canada and just the emotion of that, I feel like I'm worried they're going to come out flat. And Panama's been playing well.
I'm worried the U.S. soccer hosts a tournament and doesn't put a freaking quarterfinal, semifinal, whatever it is, in St. Louis or Chicago or Indianapolis. So they don't have any fans there.
Once again, we're talking sense here.
But you also don't want to put it in Chicago because if they wind up
because they got to
somehow against Mexico,
they got to take care of land in the San Diego.
Jesus, so I mean that the whole point of hosting the thing, have a home field advantage, is to have a home field advantage.
I know.
Screw Panama.
But but they wouldn't have had a home field advantage if they wound up playing Mexico in Chicago. Like they wouldn't have had a home field advantage in Cincinnati. They wouldn't have had a home field advantage in Cincinnati had they played Guatemala. Dude, it was nuts.
Yeah. Getting back to your prediction, Ryan.
Yep.
I can see that happening. And this will be this could be a conversation for our next podcast because we haven't really delved into this. If that happens, there's some people need to be taken out behind the woodshed. Because you just don't. I'm sorry, you don't. It's like when we used to. And I'm sure you did this too, Greg, and I know Boaz and I did. You remember back in the Cincinnati Cheetah and Wilmington Hammerhead days when you would play the college teams to warm up for your season.
Yeah.
I had one fucking rule. You do not lose to the college boys. I don't give a fuck what happens.
Yeah.
You do not lose to the college boys, right?
You pound
And
the
we are in the same position here. You do not lose to Panama.
Yeah.
You know, I don't care what you got to do.
That's
you
right.
do not let that happen. Yeah. Now, if it happens,
No.
you know, we're in deep shit.
I feel the same way. I just worry that.
No, I agree with you. I mean, it could, you know, it's the old thing. It could happen, but here's my. I don't know if we talked about Greg Berhalter coming back. I'm actually all for Greg Berhalter coming back, but here's where I think he needs to be different than last time. Just fucking win.
Yeah. Forget
give me this.
anything
Don't give me
you
this. I got to change the game, and I got to make sure everybody, you know, respects us around the world. Fuck that
fuck
shit.
that. Get results.
You know,
Absolutely.
Win
Come out.
the goddamn game.
Yeah.
By hook or by
American.
crook, win the game.
Yeah.
Because we're Americans. We don't give a fuck about all the rest of that shit. You know, we don't
Have
care
them
what
listen
people
to-
think about us, how we play. You know, we had more possession, all that bullshit. Win the fucking game, dude.
Yeah.
And
I
that's
agree.
all he should concentrate on.
Yeah.
There's none of this fucking, well, we're going to build the U14. Fuck that shit. Right?
Well, I think that the development before you get to the national team is important. Once you're at the national
not
team,
for the next 2 years,
like-
it's not, Ryan.
No.
Doesn't matter.
Like once you're on the national team, you should be looking at results.
Yes,
Period.
I agree. Yeah, that's it. That's all you should be
But
looking
like at U20, I'm not looking at the results as much at U20 as I am like, are they getting better, markedly better each and every time they're stepping foot on the pitch?
Yeah, they were till the games counted.
Yeah. So I mean, and that's
but my point is, I don't want Greg Berhalter dealing with the U20s, right? I don't want him. I don't want him dealing with those coaches. I don't want you got to. We just talked about it. You got a pool of 40 guys, basically. Some are in Europe, some are here, some are, you know. Take those 40 guys and figure out in 2026 who's going to fucking win. And you know, it's the old Herb Brooks thing. You know,
and why
I don't want
is
the
it
best
Gino?
players. I want the right players.
The right players.
Why,
And
why is
Pulisic
it,
should
why,
be.
is, why is it Gio? Why is it Gio Reyna?
I mean, Pulisic should be.
I mean, how do you
Pulisic's
deal
gonna
with
be
that? Yeah,
26.
yeah.
Pulisic's going to be 26 years old. That is the magic number for class. That's where you get the big transfers, which
Yep,
I don't know if you
yep,
said it that way,
yep.
but he's going to Milan. He's going to get hit a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, he's the key.
Is he going to get playing time there?
Why are they paying $40 million for him if they're going to play him? They're not using him for training.
They'll play
I
him.
mean,
He'll play.
I don't understand. What I don't understand.
I mean, I'm asking it semi-sarcastically because we all thought he was going to play at Chelsea too,
No,
to a
I
certain
didn't.
no,
extent.
we didn't.
Really?
I didn't.
But
No,
no,
I didn't.
no.
I thought he
I
was
would say
gonna
the
be-
majority of people thought he was going to get time at Chelsea.
Well, what
and
they
then
were
when
saying-
No,
he was
I
playing
thought
well-
he was going to be a sub. I thought he was going to be a
What they-
super sub.
What they were saying was he was supposed to take Eden Hazard's place because he had just left Real Madrid. The timing was bad, and they look alike. And Frank Lampard said, these guys are not even close. They're different. They're not even close to the same player. They're just built the same. And, you know, that was always going to be a struggle.
John Boa, give us an update on Hazard. Here's a rumor over the weekend.
Is he retiring?
Interesting. Isn't that funny, Ryan?
No, he's coming to Miami. He's coming to international.
Coming to
Miami.
In Miami.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we literally all said, everybody that was in the same spot when that was brought up went, wait, he's not retired?
Yeah.
Like everybody. I was like, I swore he retired 3 years ago.
Dude, that boy was a big time player at Chelsea.
Yes, he was.
He was a Paul Scholes
Yes, he
freaking,
was.
but better. He was good. He was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had no idea that he was still playing.
Yeah. I mean,
I legitimately thought that he retired 3 years ago.
he was at Real Madrid for 3 or 4 years and played like 40 games.
Three years and only played a total of like 37 games
There
or
you go.
something crazy.
Yeah.
But like, I had no idea he was even there.
Yeah.
But then again, I am the guy that watches all the U.S. soccer. I don't get. As I was told today during the U.S. soccer training session that I sat in on, I need to be watching more of the international game.
Okay, Captain Obvious. Thanks for
Well,
that.
like, No, it was a comment during a coach's training session that I did today that like you need to spend more time watching the game internationally. And I was like, okay, I get that. But like, if I'm watching players for the United States and they're not playing internationally, I'm watching them play where they're playing.
Yeah. Well,
because that's what I'm interested in. It was a Women's World Cup seminar today. It was actually very, very well done. But somebody did make the comment about how we just need to watch more international football.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay.
Did you kick them in the penis?
Nope, because there weren't any of those.
Well, our boys still have a lot to do, guys. I mean, Leeds is getting rid of both Americans. Aronson's gone.
Yeah.
Pete McKinney's going to leave.
Yeah.
You know, that's a tough league, man. You know, there's no.
It's not. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not Germany and France. It's just totally different. So it'd be good for them and maybe good for our national team, but it would be good to have the engine room of your country playing on the same team, right?
Yeah.
Once again, we're talking sense here.
Yeah.
Talking sense.
All right, we're done. Sorry.
Yeah, we're done.
Oh, it's good.
Ryan, thanks for everything. Bone, always a pleasure. Boa, always a pleasure.
Thanks for listening and watching, everybody.
We got lots. Yeah, thank you. We got lots to talk about coming up.
Long show.
You know, stay tuned. And hey, who knew? Who knew it was our 30th anniversary? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you know, hopefully we do better with our wives. All right, man. Talk to you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
Thanks for listening and watching the Three Old Goalies. Be sure to join us next time. Like, subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our great content. You can follow us on Instagram or Twitter. Can't get enough of the Three Old Goalies? Be sure to check us out at www.3oldgoalies.com.